Hello, American literature students. I am Professor Berninger coming at you all hepped up on Nathaniel Hawthorne because we just had a great class about the Maypole of the Marymount and the Minister's Black Veil. So I want to wrap those two stories up, fold in a little Young Goodman Brown, and really get at the core of what Nathaniel Hawthorne is up to in so very much of his writing, and in these three stories in particular. So, Hawthorne was very interested in the moment in our lives when we, frankly, become adults. That Young Goodman Brown moment, he's in the woods and he finds out his father and grandfather were not as pure as he thought. The townspeople are going to the devil-worshipping ceremony, and then Faith is there. And he never loses his faith in God, but he loses his faith in his fellow Puritans. So the story is very critical of Puritan culture that did not prepare him well for this Edenic moment. So that's one word for what I'm talking about here. So Nathaniel Hawthorne believed that the end of innocence always comes. No one can be innocent in this world. We all have a little propensity for evil. And a failure to understand that, failure to come to terms with it, will lead to, well, bad things. And he gives us three examples of bad things that it comes to. So, losing your innocence could happen in a moment. Something horrific could have happened to a person. But it kind of comes on slowly. Think of being 5 years old in the second grade and everything's great. The whole world is in the moment. You kind of know that you shouldn't do things. There's some bad things that kids aren't supposed to do. But as far as any understanding of the evil nature inside of us, which is always there for all of us, you don't really know a lot about that. Then often coinciding with puberty, you start to realize that the world is not a black and white place. Nothing is clear. Yeah, there's some things that are obviously good, some things that are obviously evil, but the world is full of shades of gray. That is like the moment when Adam and Eve eat the fruit and gain knowledge of good and evil. We talked a lot about that when we talked about Genesis. So our Edenic moment, we always eat the fruit at some point in our lives. How we respond to that, how we respond with getting kicked out of our own little Garden of Eden, whatever that Garden of Eden was, is essential to the quality of life we lead as an adult. So Hawthorne gives us 4 different paths to take after you eat the fruit, after your Edenic moment, when you are an adult and you have learned about good and bad, good and evil. Path number 1, denial. Just fail to recognize it. This leads to a childish self-centeredness, a sterile, simplistic life, a shallow life, and that is what we see in Marymount. In our contemporary American culture, I see it in materialism. Somehow the more clothes, the fancier the car, the bigger the house, the more channels we have, the better life is, you know. So it winds up this sort of childish self-centeredness. I want it, I want it, I. And that's not good. Marymounters, right? Everything's good, it's all happy, right? It's all about me. It's a me culture. Path number 2, you see yourself as sort of above it all, right? There's nothing mysterious or dark about you. You are not a part of the darkness. This can leave you feeling superior, which leaves you vulnerable. This leaves you feeling superior, but you're always a little angry, right? The Puritans in Marymount feel very superior to the Marymounters, and they're going to come and they're going to show them how to behave. They know best, right? They know best. You can't do that. Well, why not? Are we hurting you? I don't care. That's wrong, right? It gives a sense of order, right? You have these rules that you know are important, and you live your life by these rules, and everybody else should too. It gives you some sense of order in what can feel like a chaotic world of good and evil. But the order is false. The order is rigid, like the Puritans, feeling they're chosen and others are not. And going around thinking you're better than everybody else, it's not fun, right? It's not fun. You feel distant and superior, and the Puritans, especially in Hawthorne, are a bunch of jerks. Path number 3, after you're kicked out of the Garden of Eden, you become angry and bitter, feeling like you've been lied to. This leads to isolation. Young Goodman Brown, right? Spent the rest of his life a little paranoid, thinking his wife and all the townspeople were devil worshippers, but he wasn't, right? He wasn't. So those 3 paths are to be avoided. Do not deny that the world is a mix of good and bad, and sometimes it's even hard to tell the difference between the two. That leads to just ignoring everything, and it's just all about you. Self-centered, sterile, simplistic life, childish like the people of Marymount. Path number 2, Puritan, you see yourself as above it all. You know how things should be. Those people are bad. I'm good. That's not good either. You don't have empathy. You are disconnected from a whole swath of people who you think you're better than. And truth is, you're really not. Path 3, Young Goodman Brown, angry, bitter, feeling like you've been lied to. And nothing's any good. The whole world stinks. Yeah, I won the lottery, but now I have to pay taxes on $42 million. Yeah, nothing. Government's no good. Everybody, blah, blah, blah. Everything's bad, of course, except you. Hawthorne, though, to his credit, instead of saying, no, don't do these 3 things, he shows us the way. He shows us the way, right? Reverend Hooper grows from his knowledge, right? He grows from it. And he acknowledges it inside himself and in others. And he draws attention to the darkness inside him and in all people by covering his eyes. By covering it, he's drawing attention to it. We got that in class. And he's saying to everyone, this is the state that we live in. I understand, you understand, we are all in this together, right? So when you grow from it and you acknowledge and you know that you live with it, you become compassionate through awareness, through contemplation, a sense of wisdom and understanding. But you don't really come to a conclusion, right? We want a conclusion. No, you don't come to a conclusion or a resolution about people. Right when you think you have people figured out, something bad's going to happen because you're never going to have people figured out. It is still a little alienating, like Hooper was, since you're not one of the other 3, right? You're not one of the other 3. Sadly, it seems, I don't want to be too dark here because that's what I'm preaching against. We don't really live necessarily in a world where this is valued or a world that this is geared towards. Someone's always trying to convince us of something. Easy conclusions are easy to come by. But you, my beloved students, have read these 3 Nathaniel Hawthorne stories. And you've seen a character who can become compassionate through awareness, who the dying seek as they move on into whatever is next. You've seen a person who lives without resolution, who acknowledges there are things in himself that are too mysterious, maybe even dark, to understand. And he lives with it. He lives with it. And that is wisdom, right? That is wisdom. Reverend Hooper is our Hawthorne hero. So we're all coming to our Edenic moment. We all eat the fruit one way or the other. We all get kicked out of whatever Garden of Eden we were in as a child. You can deny it and just say, it's all good. Childish, self-centered Marymount. That's not me. I'm better than that. I'm above it all. I am pure and perfect. The Puritans in the Maypole of the Marymount. Or young Goodman Brown. You're all bad people. You're all terrible, but I'm good. Kind of like number 2, right? But he becomes very bitter and angry about it. He becomes bitter and isolated from it. So 2 and 3 are similar. And then the 4th, Mr. Hooper. You grow. You become compassionate. A little dark. You may have a sad smile, a melancholy smile because you've lost the innocence of youth. But better a melancholy smile than a fake smile, than a superior smile, or young Goodman Brown, no smile at all. Be Reverend Hooper, everybody. Be Reverend Hooper.